Good morning. For those who wonder why I always start the videos by looking at my phone, it's because I control my camera from my phone. And then somehow, for some reason, I'm inclined to turn it off on the camera body. It feels more legit. Bye. Today we're going to talk about movies, features. You ever want to make one? Have you? Have you made one? Have you suffered the consequences of making one? Have you realized that you're not a millionaire after your first feature? I can't tell you what's right or wrong in making a feature. Everybody makes movies their own way. I can tell you some things that I've learned. I can also tell you some things to consider from mistakes that I've made and I've seen my peers make and of course my mentors and friends who are at different levels of this industry, much higher tiers than myself. The biggest thing that I'd like to warn you, and this is mainly for sort of either actors or first-time directors or writers or whoever you are, producers who are trying to like get into feature films, or maybe you're new to the industry and you're like, I have this script, I want to make a movie. I can't tell you that you can't make a movie as the first project in the industry. I don't recommend it. But then again, I don't recommend against it. I think it should be in tandem with learning about the industry and growing into it. I love production of any kind. Not everybody does. To me, I like being on set. So if I'm doing a commercial, if I'm doing a reel for an actor, if I'm doing a national commercial for a big brand or a feature film, or just a fun short, I have fun. And I don't take jobs that I don't want to do. So I guess that has something to do with it too. But if you just want to make a feature and you think you're just going to go out and write a cool story because you think it's good, maybe it's autobiographical, maybe it's based on events that you've experienced, maybe it's just a good idea that you had and you wrote it and maybe submitted it to a screenplay festival and maybe you even got some recognition there, and now you're going to go get it financed. Or maybe you don't have a story, but you have somebody that you know that's interested in potentially financing a film. Or you're rich, or you just have a little extra money and you want to make a movie. All I can say is consider a couple of things. If you're serious about longevity and making something that has the potential to have a bit of an ROI, go somewhere, do something. And I want to caution you to not lean. Everything's about balance in life. So everything I say, it's not like, oh, now 100% this way or 100% that way. I'm scrambling all these thoughts together so that they can come together in a beautiful symphony of musical words. The biggest thing that I want to give you as a, look out for this kind of note is make sure that you have the end goal in mind first. Before you develop your script, before you think about it too much, before you write it, think about where it's going to go. Okay? Who's it for? Who's going to watch it? Genres are good for first movies. So like a horror or a thriller or action, or a comedy or something specific is good for a first movie. So it's not too ambiguous, unless you're going strictly for the festival circuit. And you're not too worried about potentially making money back because it's a higher risk, because you're not making it what's called for the market. You're not making a product to sell. So there's two reasons one might make a movie. One is to create a business and try to grow a production company and maybe get recognized as an entity that can produce and have relationships with certain networks or streaming platforms or something because they produce good content within a certain space. Blumhouse, for instance, starting with Paranormal Activity all the way through to Get Out. But they've done other films, but they've sort of stuck in large to the horror genre, or Happy Madison with Adam Sandler sort of repeating his process of comedic films that are somewhat similar to each other and just feeding the same audience basically what they want. And that's cool. And then the other option might be somebody who just wants to create art house drama, not just necessarily drama, but stylized films, different films, non defined genres, kind of a bit different. That's more of a directorial or maybe like a writer kind of director type approach, where it's more about the artistic genius of the creator, and it's a bit higher risk because you might want to blur lines between genres, and that might get you recognition, and it might get you looked at as somebody that is visionary and potentially will get hired as a director to take on maybe innovative theatrical films down the line or something, if theater still exists after this whole pandemic. But it's a fine line between creative innovation and something that's new, and also the risk mitigation of people who back and finance films, right? So that's always the problem. And what I've noticed is, and I've done both. I've done sort of genre films, and I've done attempted to do, not as a director but as a producer, kind of a more art house sort of film. And this is where this video comes from. The reality of it is, we made a $750,000 movie once, and the script was wonderful. The director had a lot of experience, and the performances were brilliant. The execution of the film, the cinematography was great. Everything was really good about it, but something, when it was done, got it into a few festivals, good festivals, but it didn't quite outperform other films in certain ways. It didn't end up collecting awards of those festivals, which it would have been great. But then the biggest thing that happened is that because of its sort of ambiguity of genre, and it not having gotten to the point where it was sort of back to go theatrical and have a big mainstream or even just limited release kind of push to justify sort of an avenue of distribution and collect enough data in terms of like the demographic and all that stuff for who's coming to theaters to watch this movie. No marketing or no sales company or distributor picked it up. It was not it wasn't really formatted for children, but it had kids in it. It wasn't really a film for adult males or adult females, because it was somewhat childish, but kind of magical, but there were swear words in it and stuff. So it was, think like Beast of Southern Wild and Little Miss Sunshine and stuff, but kind of not quite there. And that's the danger of creating artistic, creative films without really considering ahead of time what the market is for it, right? So that brings me to the point of it behooves you to know, at least starting out until you get, 2, 3, 4 films in and you sort of have a bit of traction. It's not to say that, it's like with acting. It's not to say that if you start as a comedy actor that you're always going to be pigeonholed there. It's going to be what you're known for. So you have to take that into account, that it's not going to be as easy for you to jump over and do a heavy drama as Jim Carrey, but it is possible, and it is done, and it's done more and more in recent past, and those lines are getting a bit more blurred, and directors and producers are able to produce movies outside of their sort of wheelhouse once they've gotten some traction. What I'm saying is, to get started and get the ball rolling, it's not a smart business move, in my opinion, to do an ambiguous non-genre film in the beginning, if the intention is not to become, to take a high risk and just get known for in festivals potentially as some sort of a visionary director, but know that there's not much you can do with the film if it doesn't go absolutely nuts. And honestly, even Oscar-winning films, like, they don't necessarily make that much money. So it depends on where you're going for. If you're looking for a career in like filmmaking and producing and stuff, then it's potentially a better sort of avenue of thought for you to think in a certain direction, and that actually kind of translates to acting as well. So if you kind of just are looking for consistent work, it's good to be known for something. You should have a thing. What makes you unique? What's your shtick, your angle, your persona, your essence? With films too, a Tarantino film somewhat is a Tarantino film. They kind of all have similar attributes, and so directors, of course, for them it's often a lot of directors have a similar sort of portfolio when you compare the films to each other. So that's my biggest tip about thinking about making movies. Like, have an idea for where it's going to end up, and then sort of reverse engineer it to your script. And the second thing that I'd like to say and plant in your head is, especially when you're looking at a low budget situation, don't try and raise $10 million for your first movie. It just doesn't make any sense. Make it cheap, and make it good. Have a great script. Have a simple script that can be executed simply. 1 or 2 locations, not a lot of money. Keep it basic, keep it simple, and focus on, think Reservoir Dogs, Tarantino's first official movie. Think small. Think, what do I have available? And write around that. Because lines tend to be blurred. People write scripts that are meant to be, $60 million movies. I'm not saying you can't do that, but you're not going to make that movie yourself. You're not going to be involved in the production of that. You might sell the script if you're lucky, but why do that if you just got to start small and build up, right? And it doesn't take that long. Just start very small. The second one's a bit bigger, and the third and the fourth, and so forth. So think of what you have available to you, resource-wise, and how to write a great script around that you can fit into a genre that you are most likely to be able to convince a specific network or international sales agent or somebody to sort of be able to look at and say, okay, yeah, I can see where this film's going to go. I can see who's potentially the audience for this, and maybe even cut you a distribution deal, and maybe even a pre-sale kind of thing, where you already have sort of distribution laid out before the movie's even made. That's becoming a little bit more difficult these days, but again, anything's possible. You might just have to find the money, make the movie, and go for it. So have a great idea, see what you can do, what the means are that you have to produce with around you. Where can you beg, borrow, steal? What locations can you get? What town can you borrow? Where can you make this movie cheaply and effectively? What actors do you know that can jump on? Make the movie. Think about who it's for. Think about where it's going to go once it sells, not the festival genius, and try to create something that's repeatable and that you can sort of build upon. That's my advice. You can do whatever you want, of course. I should take my own advice. That's what we made some big mistakes. All right, I'll see you around.